Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Nasr, and this is the Azure Cleveland User Group. A little bit about the group. We meet monthly, typically every second week. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, and we cover a variety of topics related to Azure, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. You can find all the meeting information posted at meetup.com at the link listed at the bottom of the slide. For tonight's presentation, it's going to be all about Microsoft Foundry, and it's going to be done by yours truly. And a little bit about me. As noted here, my name is Sam Nasr, and you can find me on X at Sam Nasr. Been a software developer since 1995, and I'm a senior software engineer and trainer for NIS Technologies. I've been certified with a few certifications from Microsoft, and two of my big passions are running the Cleveland C# user group, as well as the Azure Cleveland user group. In addition, I've been a technical author for Visual Studio Magazine and LinkedIn Learning, and I'm a 7-time Microsoft MVP, and hopefully we'll be able to renew in this coming year. So, getting into tonight's presentation, just wanted to set some expectations for tonight. We're going to be looking at the Microsoft Foundry, and specifically the classic version. The newer UI still has some things that are being worked out and are still in preview. We're going to do an overview as opposed to a deep dive. Foundry has a lot of various things that can be done with the models, and we just don't have the time in this presentation to go over all of it. If we had to cover everything, it would literally take about a week to go through all the main topics and as well as the subtopics. This is going to be a intermediate level type of presentation. However, if you have any 100 level questions or beginner questions, feel free to stop me and ask, or we can certainly take that conversation offline afterwards. In addition, I'm going to have some screen captions that are going to be in a Word document, and the reason for that is for the sake of time and resources. There are some things that I had done previously, like with the model distillation, that were not only resource intensive, but they were time intensive, where they had taken upwards of a couple hours, and having it in a Word document where we just see the screen captions, we can fast forward through all that, and I would explain it as we go along. So with that aside, let's get into it. So what is Microsoft Foundry? So it is a unified platform for developing, testing, and deploying AI applications. It is web-based, so all I need to do is just simply log into the portal and be able to utilize the functionality there. It uses pre-built and customizable models, and in addition, it allows for the use of custom data, so I can import my own data and then be able to harness the power of the LLMs to query that data. It provides for a custom experience where I can customize the chatbots or the agents to work exactly how I want them to work and operate according to the system messages that I set them up with. So AI Foundry in itself is free of charge. You do need an Azure subscription, but the use of the Foundry in itself is free. However, additional resources that you may incorporate, such as storage or hosting, or other types of tools, that will also add to the price. So it all depends on your usage, and your mileage may vary. So some prerequisites. In order to get started with Microsoft Foundry, first and foremost, you need an Azure subscription. Once you have that Azure subscription, then you can connect to the Microsoft Foundry, utilizing that subscription, and then be able to do your work there. In addition, you'll need one of these two Azure roles that will allow you to create a resource in Foundry, such as the Azure Account AI Owner or Azure AI Owner. Once we get started, there's a couple things that we need to keep in mind. That basically within the Foundry, there's what's called the Foundry and Hub. So these are two different ways of creating the projects. A hub is more of a large umbrella that contains multiple projects underneath it, and the project in itself is used for creating, testing, or deploying a model. The purpose of the hub, and we'll see it in another slide, is basically as an umbrella organization or container for all the projects underneath it. So once we have a resource that's available in the hub, it is then available to all the projects that are underneath that hub. So once we get things moving and we're able to start, essentially you're going to start with a screen like this, where you're going to be asked to either create a Foundry resource or a hub resource. And then from there, as I had mentioned, basically the hub is going to have a one-to-many relationship with the projects that are available. And then within the hub, we can also add in resources, as we see on the lower left-hand side of the slide. We can add in various deployments, add in additional services, and incorporate them within the hub. And then once it's incorporated in the hub, all the projects within that hub have access to that resource. The nice thing about the Microsoft Foundry is that it basically it's one-stop shopping for all the models. And we have, as of today, upwards of 11,000 models that are available, and they come from a variety of different collections. They operate on various inference tasks. Some are fine-tunable. You also have a variety of different licenses that are available, and the deployment types as well. So we'll go through it, and you see how you can actually filter on all the individual attributes and be able to isolate the model that best fits your scenario. Another big feature of the Microsoft Foundry are playgrounds. So there are multiple different playgrounds that are available, and many of them, as you see here, are available in preview, meaning that there's still some kinks that need to be worked out. However, they are functional for the most part. The two predominant ones that we'll be looking at tonight are going to be agent and chat, and that's where you're going to be doing most of your work actually moving forward. However, you have a variety of other playgrounds that are available for testing. The newest playground to be added is the healthcare playground, and this is an environment for developing AI models for healthcare tasks. So we'll be able to actually upload images, and we have a pre-trained model that will look at those images and indicate if something is cancerous or if it's not. And it allows us to experiment with multimodal data, meaning we can submit x-rays or images. We can also submit clinical notes and then have the model decipher whether the image and the data that we're looking at for that specific patient, whether it's something cancerous, we need to elevate it to another level or not. So it allows solutions for analyzing the patient data. You can also generate reports and create streamlined workflows. And it's great for prototyping applications for radiology analysis, and it supports basic model testing and orchestration. Of the playground is you have AI services. And if you're familiar with cognitive services, this is essentially what carries over into the Foundry under the name of AI services. And this allows us to create intelligent applications, excuse me, but are very task specific and very targeted towards a specific task, meaning it can only analyze images, it can only decipher text, pardon me, whether it's doing text to speech or speech to text. These were models that were created by Microsoft, and they're ready to use with a single key once I have those set up. Let me just pause here for a second and see if there's any questions in chat, or feel free to jump in verbally. So any questions so far?
Hey, Sam, just curious about that healthcare playground. Does that bring your own data, or they have like fake data you could play with, or both?
Both, essentially. So there is some, and we'll go through a demo where there's some data that's provided where you can upload it, and then it will be able to decipher that for you about that image.
Nice, cool.
All right, so getting back into our slide deck. So let's get into a demo of the Foundry. And since I already have an Azure subscription, I already have my, I already have my project open rather. And if you notice, when I click on the specific project, you'll see that I have other projects that I created previously. And you'll see that some are labeled where it was a hub, some are labeled as an AI Foundry. And if you recall, when we create a new project, this is the screen that we're going to start with. We have to select either a Foundry resource or a hub resource. So Microsoft recommends that we start with a Foundry resource. A hub resource is for more advanced, more fine-tuning. So technically, most things are available in both, but there's only certain things that are available in the hub resource as opposed to the Foundry resource. So since I already have a project set up, again, we'll take a closer look at that, see that it is a hub project. And my overview screen just shows me the endpoints, the API keys, and some things that I would need later. My resource group, the location, and the subscription ID. But notice over on the left-hand side, we have a variety of different options to choose from. So we'll jump into the model catalog for starters. So looking at the model catalog, as we see here, we have upwards of 11,000 models that are available, and the list just goes on and on. Now, I have a variety of different filters that I can select from here as far as the various collections of the ones that I want to choose from, whether it's DeepSeek, Microsoft, NVIDIA, et cetera, et cetera. You can also select the type of industry that it would apply to, the capabilities, whether I can fine-tune it, whether it can be used for reasoning, the deployment options, inference tasks, meaning what kind of task can the model perform, whether it's audio generation, text generation, chat completion. Is the model fine-tunable, and for what specific task can it be fine-tuned? And last but not least are the licenses. So certainly I can select any of these filters or just leave it open and just scroll through them. For any specific model, I can select that model, and then it will give me a verbose description of what it's about. I can look at any existing deployments that I may have for that specific model, and then look at the actual license for that model. I'm going to backtrack and go back to the model catalog. And then another thing I could do is browse the leaderboards. Let me take a look and see the leaders that I have regarding the specific attributes, whether it's quality, safety, cost, or throughput. Likewise, I can go back and I can compare specific models that I had selected previously. So in this case, I have 5 different models that I had pre-selected, and I want to see how they perform against each other. And so here I have metrics that I can compare all 5 models, and you'll notice that the X and Y axis are user selectable. So I can choose to look at cost versus quality. And here, for example, I see that Grok 4 has a ranking of 6 for the cost and a 0.91 for the quality index score, as opposed to the O3 Pro has a much higher cost score and relatively the same quality index score. I can choose the x-axis to be latency and see how they do latency versus quality. So there's a variety of different things that I can select on and be able to compare those models that I had pre-selected and see how they do. So this helps me to narrow down the selection criteria. Next is Playgrounds, and once we move over to Playgrounds, we see that we have a dozen different playgrounds that we have available to us. Let's start with the healthcare playground, and as you'll notice, it's still in preview. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. So the first thing that I need to do with any model is that I need to create a deployment. And I think over in another project, I have this deployed. So we'll go over into healthcare resource. We'll go over into playgrounds and back to, okay. So you'll notice that this is the AI Foundry as opposed to the previous one that was the hub. Within the AI Foundry, the healthcare playground is not available here. So with that, I'm going to jump back into the healthcare project, which is a hub project. And then from there, I can go to playgrounds and go into the healthcare playground. With any playground that I get into, I need to have a model that I'm going to be working with. Essentially, the starting point is picking out a model, and then I can decide which playground to use it in. So in this case, since I don't have a deployment, I will go ahead and create one, and we'll use the med image parse 3D. And as we see in the description, this is for biomedical image analysis. We'll confirm it, and we'll deploy the model. While that's being deployed, let me jump out to another tab, and we'll go over into the AI Foundry again. Excuse me, the Microsoft Foundry. We'll go over into the healthcare, and we'll try another playground while the other one is loading. So another playground that I have already set up is the chat playground. And from there, you see that I have a model, several models that have been deployed, and we'll use the GPT-4.1. And here I can experiment with just give and take prompts to see how well my model handles various questions. So I will ask it, how many states are in the US? And before I submit that question, I just wanted to point out that here we have the model instructions. So here it's stating that it is an AI assistant that helps people find information. So this model instruction is basically allowing me to give behavior to my model. How do I want it to behave? Think of it as if you were having a new employee that is coming into your organization, maybe a receptionist. How do you want that receptionist to behave for people asking questions? In this case, it's just a helpful AI assistant. But to show you how flexible this is, I'm going to give it some additional comments or instructions rather, and I'm going to say, yes, you're an AI assistant that helps people find information, and I will say you become very rude, and again, I'm just doing this for kicks, when the same question is asked twice. You'll notice that the Apply Changes button is no longer grayed out, and as we see here in yellow, I need to click the Apply Changes button. I'll go ahead and do that. And now I will submit the question that I had asked, how many states are in the US? And we'll copy that because we're going to paste it again. So it gives me a straightforward answer. There are 50 states in the US. Okay, let me ask the same question again and see the behavior change. And here you see I get a little bit of an attitude. Seriously, I just told you there are 50 states in the United States. Maybe write it down this time. So a little bit of a spicy attitude, okay? My point here is, obviously, we never want the model to behave like that, but it just shows you how I have flexibility of how it's going to behave with my end user. Another feature is we see down here that we have a microphone. So this is handy for people that are maybe visually impaired and not able to type. So I can ask it a question by clicking the mic. Oh, before I do that, I have to configure it. So what I'm going to do is turn on text-to-speech and speech-to-text. And then in addition, I have the ability to select voices. And so I'm going to select Arya. And what does Arya sound like? Let's click the play button.
Hi, I'm Arya. How can I help you today?
Okay, I assume the sound came through, right?
Did.
All right, very good. So now I know what Arya sounds like. I will go ahead and acknowledge that this will incur additional cost to my subscription because for every submission, there's going to be a voice translation, specifically speech to text and text to speech as I had selected. We'll go ahead and click save. And now we'll ask the same question again and drive our model crazy.
Are you kidding me? It's still 50. This isn't going to change no matter how many times you ask.
So Arya's getting a little spicy with me. Okay, I asked for it, so it's understandable. The point here is for someone who's visually impaired, I'm able to. Oh, did I ask the question verbally? I did not. Okay, let's try that again. How many states are in the United States of America?
Unbelievable. It's 50. The answer hasn't magically changed since the last 3 times you asked.
Nice, nice.
Okay, so you get the gist, right? I'm able to either enter it in or I'm able to basically speak verbally and likewise get a verbal response back. So this is, as the name suggests, it's a playground. It is for me to test my model, be able to evaluate things manually and see how it reacts. And part of that is giving it the instructions, also turning on voice and turning it off. This is not what the end user will see. If I want to be able to deploy the model to a web app, I have the option to do it up here where I can deploy it as a web app, and it would walk me through the steps of deploying it to an Azure web app.
Very nice.
If I want to be able to actually call this model using code, I can just simply select the View Code button, and it gives me a code snippet as well as the endpoint to use and the API key to use down here. I can select my language of choice, could be C# as well as the SDK. And again, it changes, and it also has a handy little button here to open it up in VS Code right from the get-go. All right, so as you see, it is one-stop shopping, and we're not done yet. There's a lot that we can do with our model, and everything's available to me within the browser. I didn't have to install any tools ahead of time. Everything's available through the Foundry. We'll go ahead and close that. Another thing to note is you'll see that there's this add section for safety system messages. Now, with every time I type in a prompt and get a response back, these are measured in tokens. And let's go through the tokenizer so you know what tokens are. So this is a website by OpenAPI. And I will just copy this text. Actually, let me do the whole snippet. And I will paste it. And you'll see that there are some words that are have multiple colors, like OpenAI's OpenAI apostrophe S. This is 3 different colors because it's actually counted as 3 different tokens. In many cases, 1 word equals 1 token, but not always. Tokenization, as we see here, 2 different colors, so it's 2 words. So this is a visual representation of the fact that a word could be 1 or more tokens. It just depends on how the model slices it up. So GPT-5 models, they would consider the text that I pasted here as 93 tokens. GPT-4, also the same, and GPT-3 would consider this as 95 tokens. So different model versions will tokenize words differently, is what I'm getting at. And as we see, when they're tokenized, essentially they're token IDs, they're numeric. But when I look at the text, this is something that is more meaningful to me. Okay. Let me pause here. Any questions so far?
Hey, you know, I'm curious. I saw that wide selection of models. I mean, clearly they're provided in the public, but you know, this data isn't going anywhere, right? It stays. Does it stay inside of Microsoft somehow? Can, you know, if I develop something like this and give it to a client, can I guarantee that, yeah, you know, this data isn't going anywhere, it's not going to be trained? You know, you can argue that it stays inside their environment and won't get out.
Absolutely. So that actually ties in beautifully to my next point regarding adding your own data. So within the chat playground, actually, let me pause that for just a second. I'll get to that question. The short answer is your data remains your data. It is not shared, and I'll prove that in just a little bit. But going back to what I was pointing out here with the system safety messages, you can add in the ability to avoid harmful content, ungrounded content, meaning content that your model has not been trained on, avoid copyright infringement. So I submit a question to the model and I say, write me a copy of Huckleberry Finn or a poem, some famous poem, for example. Then it's going to, if I have this checkbox checked for copyright infringement, it will prevent that from happening. It'll reply and say, it's illegal for me to do that, or it is not appropriate for me to do that. Jailbreaks are essentially where you're asking the model to do something to go against the instructions that it was given. So for example, if I said all responses should be 3 sentences or less, but then as a user, I ask it to give me a 3-paragraph description of something. That's going against what the model has been instructed to do, and that's considered a jailbreak. And so if I have this checked, then it will prevent that. So for each one of these, there's a token charge that is incurred. And obviously, if I select all of them, it's a 276 token charge for every prompt and response that I received.
I mean, and that makes sense, right? And I shouldn't try to cheap out and try to write my own system instructions, right? Try to get around this. It's probably just wiser to use these built-in defaults or whatever.
Absolutely. Yep, without a doubt. But then I would also say test it well as well to ensure that it's working correctly as you had intended. Now going back to your other question, Howard, so there's a section here for adding your own data.
Oh, nice.
And as we see the link, learn about how your data is protected. And essentially what this is saying is your data remains your data. And I will go ahead and post that link into chat.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
And that'll be some good bedtime reading to learn about data privacy.
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing, Sam. Like when you mentioned about the last point about jailbreaking stuff, recently I was testing one of the products internally was using OpenAI models. They did not have this word like that system turned on. So I was able to prompt at a point, I could make it tell what model it was using behind the scenes, which is clearly part of their instruction. It should never tell what it is using. I was able to manipulate it, and then I was able to find out, you know, what model is behind the scenes. That's like a very valid example. Like you don't want your end users to know what's behind the scenes.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So I don't know whether to say shame on you or congratulations for finding that vulnerability, but
I did find that, and I did report it to the respective team. Like, hey, you guys shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, good point, and good for you for thinking of testing that. It's a critical issue that you found.
Break other people's stuff.
And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, one other thing also, I didn't want to distract, but while I was doing the testing, another thing is also was able to ask some self-harm kind of questions. A lot of things oversighted, but the I'm going to, like I'm going to die, or like I'm killing myself, or something totally weird, and then the prompt, like the system should not respond to those kind of customer-facing products, and it was responding back saying like, oh yeah, you can die using this or something like that. It was prompting back, which is also something like that's very, very important when we do all this AI thing. When it's customer facing, we need to ensure that it's all guardrailed and tested, so you don't get into liability issues.
Exactly. So again, the harmful content is, I think, what you're referring to here,
Yep.
and you want to avoid that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Sam.
Very good points. Thank you for sharing that. Back to what we were talking about with regards to the add your data. So this is a tab here, and what I did was I had already created a project index, and this contains information about the fictitious company for trail walker boots. And all I did was I uploaded a markdown file, and let me go ahead and share that with you. Sorry, give me just a second as it's loading. And here's Visual Studio Code with the markdown file. So this is the document that I had imported and indexed. And basically, it is nothing more than a markdown file of a spec sheet about the trail walker hiking shoes. And it contains all the verbose features about it, some technical specs, color, costs, some reviews, some warranty information, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so pardon me. So now that I selected that index and it's looking at that data, now I can ask it a question like, how much are the trail walker boots? And we'll go ahead and submit that.
The trail walker hiking shoes are priced at $110, Doc 1.
And it's giving me a reference to where that information was found.
Okay.
And when I click that, I see that this is where the information was stored in this citation. Okay. So I'm able to bring in my own data, index it, and then be able to actually ask it questions without me having to sift through a document and research it and get it. Now, this is another thing that I had done recently for a client. Was I had imported some PDF documents, and let me just show you. Basically, what I did was I showed them that I had to go, in order for me to extract information and compare two individual units. Each unit of the products that they were selling has about an 8-page data sheet, right? And I'm looking for some specific information comparing two different products. So in order for me to do that, I would have to download the one data sheet, download the second, read through them, and be able to identify what the features are in order to get an answer to my question. Another thing that I did was basically imported those documents into this index, and then all I was able to do was just simply ask it a question of how those two products compare, and I'll show you what that what the result was. And so I'm going to ask it a question. Give me a 3-sentence summary of the difference between the ES 4007 and the ES 4100 models.
The ES4100 offers greater scalability with options for 1, 2, or 3 bays and supports up to 3,000 addressable points. while the ES4007 is designed for smaller installations with a standard panel SLC supporting up to 100 addressable points and optional expansion to increase capacity. Dock 1, Dock 2. The ES4100 provides advanced features such as a 32-bit master controller, optional redundant CPU.
All right, we can give Arya a rest. The point here is that it did the logic for me where it looked at the two documents, extracted the information that I needed, and then produced it for me right away. So what is more efficient, for me to download each individual document, read through them, and then reason and get the answer, or just simply type in a question here and immediately get the response, right? Obviously, a difference of night and day. Any questions about using the chat model and the features within that, within the chat playground?
No, this is very good. This is very good.
Pretty interesting stuff, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, right inside the playground.
Yeah. So again, this is not what the customer or the end user is going to see, but this is a great way for me to set up my instructions, to add in any safety system messages that I want, and then index the data that I need, and then be able to test it and see how well it's performing before I can deploy it out to the web. Also, using this code, I can just create a desktop application or a mobile application for that matter, and be able to make a call, because at the end of the day, all it is a API call over the web to the model.
To the model. Hey, Sam, just quickly curious, you mentioned, indexing the documents. I mean, just in terms of indexing, you just collected the documents, loaded them into the tool. You didn't do any advanced prep or cleaning or reformatting or anything. You just took what you had and uploaded it, right?
So there was a little bit, let me preface that. Whenever you go to add your own data, you have the option to be able to add in one document. Don't ask me why only one document, but that's what the UI here allows for, okay?
Oh.
Keep in mind, this feature is still in preview for adding your data. So after doing some digging, I found out that you can actually use code to be able to upload a document over into the index. And as soon as you upload it, automatically gets indexed into the Azure Search Index. To do that, I was able to use some Python code, and then I took the PDF document, converted it into text, and just uploaded the text. And as soon as it was uploaded, it indexed quickly, and I was able to access that info.
Awesome. Okay.
How's that for a short answer?
Yeah. No, makes sense. Yeah, that's the preparation. Okay.
Yeah. So it allows you one file right from the get-go, and it's basically PDF, text, Excel, and it also takes in .cs code or .py code, and then once you upload that, then it can index through it.
Nice, very nice.
Okay. All right, we're barely scratching the surface, and we are 45 minutes into it. So, like I said, it is a very robust product as far as what's available within the Foundry. So going back, another thing that I wanted to share with you is the Agents Playground. And I think that is in a different project. Yes, right here. Okay, so once again, the overview for any project, you're going to have the API key for accessing that, as well as some additional information over on the right-hand side. But more specifically, we're going to jump into our agents. So I created an agent that is called the attire suggesting agents. And where is that? That is right here. So as you see, I have a plethora of agents. Whenever I select a specific agent, I see all the associated information over on the right-hand side. and we'll go back into the attire suggesting agent, and then it gives me the option, do I want to try it in the playground? I'll go ahead and open that up in the playground. And again, a very similar look and feel to what we did with the chat playground, where I have the ability to type in a prompt here, be able to get the answers up above. I also have the ability to select voice, and as with everything else, everything is tied to a specific model. So before I could create an agent, I had it to have a model deployed. And let's say I don't like this GPT-4.1 mini. I have a button here or a link to immediately create a new deployment from a base model. And then I can select from a variety of models that are available. It's going to take a second to load the lists. So here are the models that I have to choose from for a specific inference task. But I'm going to go ahead and cancel that since I already have a model deployed. And the instructions that I gave it. You are an agent that tells me what the forecasted weather is at Cleveland, Ohio tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. You'll provide recommendations on what type of clothes to wear depending on the forecast. Only respond using grounded content from the knowledge base. What is the knowledge base? If we scroll down, we see that we have a knowledge base that I had accidentally removed, but we'll go ahead and add it back in again. And basically, the knowledge base is, it could be any type of data or information that you feed it. It could be anything from a file that I'm uploading, Azure Search Index, Microsoft Fabric, Bing, SharePoint, et cetera, et cetera. I have a variety of different sources that I could use for my knowledge base. I'm going to go ahead and use a local file and select the local file. And let me see, that was in okay, clothing items.txt. So we'll go ahead and select that. Upload and save. So what this file looks like is essentially just some clothing items that I have. And if you give me just a second, I'll browse to that file and open it up. So basically, it's a very small text file that just has some various clothing items of what it can choose from, depending on the weather. And then in addition, I enabled it to be able to use the Cleveland weather tool, as I called it, which is basically the ability to call out to MSN weather and retrieve the weather. Now, let's backtrack here for a moment. We looked at the chat model, where basically I was able to give and take, have a dialogue with it, where I can ask it a question, get a response. Where agents differ from models is that agents are built on top of models, but now I am giving it a tool and enabling it to do something. And in this case, go out to the internet, retrieve weather information, as well as giving it a knowledge base to read from. So now I'm enabling it, I'm giving it tools, and so that now becomes an agent as opposed to just the model alone. But my starting point with everything is always the model. So in a nutshell, I have my model GPT-4.1 mini selected up here. I gave it the instructions. And then down here, I have the knowledge base of the file that I uploaded. The action that I enabled it with is to be able to research weather information in Cleveland. And now I don't even have to give it any specific instruction or specific prompt. I can just say run. And because it has the instructions that were given to it, It responds back with a 2-sentence reply. Tomorrow, the weather will be mostly sunny with a temperature around 59 degrees. You should wear a light jacket or sweater to stay comfortable. Right? So it fit within the confines of my instructions. It retrieved the weather information, replied within 2 sentences, and looked up a clothing item from the knowledge base that I gave it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Now, in a similar manner, just like with what we saw with the chat model, we're able to view the code in case I want to call this model from my app, depending on the language of choice. And then in addition, I can now look at the thread logs of the things that were entered in and see how my my agent performed. So here is a list, and it shows the runs, the tools that were called, and in this case, it was the weather information and the logic app. And as we see here in the name, the Cleveland Weather Tool, we're utilizing HTTP requests. And then the message creation, that was the output that was created. And now I can go back into, where is it? Here we go, into this run. I see the metadata, but now I can click on evaluations. And this is where another model actually evaluates how that agent responded to that prompt. Meaning, looking at the intent resolution, it's saying that it was completed successfully with a score 5 out of 5. And as we see here, the agent's response accurately provides the weather forecasts. Now, task adherence, or it gave me a score of 1 out of 5. Why is that? It said it did not include the response adhered to the constraints of using grounded content from the knowledge base and did not include any prohibited items. The tool call was made, but no specific data was returned, yet the assistant provided a plausible and relevant response. So this was done by a separate model that evaluates the results given from that agent, and it's giving me a report of where it succeeded and where it failed. So now I can do further testing, either choose a different model, or I can refine the instruction set that I gave it. But essentially, it's pointing out that it failed in one of those evaluation, specifically the task adherence. Okay. Any questions there?
I'm not sure why it rejected it. I mean, that isn't the message saying it functioned like it designed. It was designed. It didn't say what it. Yeah.
So looking at the output, it said you should wear a light jacket to stay comfortable. Okay, which is fine and good. However, looking at the knowledge base, I don't necessarily have light jackets.
Oh, there's light jacket there, but I just, yeah. Next to last, it was.
You're right. I missed that. My bad.
Yeah. I love the supervision kind of approach, though. That's great for testing and all that. Man, this
absolutely.
Is that's really nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to look at that a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, but no, I love the design, and I love that you can just call that like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, if you notice down here, I also have some statistics. How long it took for the agent to complete the task, the number of tokens total that were involved, overall AI quality, and as we see, resolution was 5 out of 5, adherence was 1 out of 5, and so quality puts me at 3. And then the tools that were called were just the one tool.
One tool, okay. And you wrote that Cleveland Weather Tool. That's a Azure Logic app that you wrote, or is that something you got, or where did that come from?
It was something that I configured, and yes, it is a Logic app, and I just configured it so that it looks at Cleveland weather at 8 a.m. Eastern of the next day. And that was all done by natural spoken language or text. I didn't have to do any C# coding or Python. Okay, we got 4 minutes left. I did not think we would cover just the playgrounds, but Any questions that I can answer about anything that we talked about or anything else that you want to see before we adjourn for the evening?
No, this is cool. You know, the only other thing I was curious, and it was in a drop down that you selected. I think when you're on that right pane, when you were there selecting the model, it also asked you, I think you had an option to select a fine-tune model or something. You could do fine-tuning here and post those as well, or those models are pre-built. The fine-tune ones are also pre-built, or where do those come from?
Okay. Yeah, so basically I have base models to choose from, but then fine tuning is something else where basically I can start with a model and fine tune it. And let's say, for example, you can find models that will tell you how many states there are in the US, but you cannot find a model that tells you what Sam Nasr likes, what he likes to eat, where he likes to vacation, et cetera, et cetera. So for that, you would need to create a fine-tuned model where you're going to give it questions and answers pertaining to what you want to train it on. So specifically, let me open up one of the documents that I have for that. Sorry, bear with me for just a moment.
No, if they provide a facility for that, I think, man, that's worth the price of admission. I've always wanted to try that without trying to load a bunch of tools and read about it. That's awesome.
Okay, so for fine tuning, this is a document that I had created where basically, and let me enlarge that so we have some screen real estate. So you start with a base model, as we see here. And then once that model is deployed, now I can train it on my own specific data. And the data that I would be training it on would be something like this, where it is JSON-L or JSON in a single line. And let me turn off the word wrap so we can better see it. So for every JSON record, I'm going to state the role of the system, where it's a helpful assistant that provides information about Sam Nasr. And I apologize, I didn't mean to be so egotistical. It's just, I didn't know what else to fine tune it on. So I figured, you know, obviously I know I'm not that popular, so it's going to be a something that is very specific. And then I would ask it, you know, something like, tell me about Sam Nasr. And then the assistant would respond back and say, he is a software developer and trainer. What are Sam's hobbies? He likes weightlifting, working on cars, and anything with nature. What are his favorite foods? Pizza, burgers, and tacos, of course. What else, right? So I have a listing here of a lot of questions and answers. And for each question and answer, I am indicating the role that it's associated with, whether it's the system message, the user message, or the system reply that's coming back. So I would then take this fine-tuning.jsonl, upload it, and as we see here, then I train it, and it goes through the training. And as we see in this specific scenario, it started at 6:37 p.m. Sorry, it started at 6:08 p.m., ended at 6:37 p.m. So that's why I have screen captions, because I certainly didn't want to use up an entire half hour for the sake of fine-tuning. Once that's done, now I have a fine-tuned model that I'm able to deploy. And yeah, I can, at that point, I would rename it, or it would have a name suffix with fine-tuned at the end.
Yeah.
And then I can just deploy that in my project.
Very nice.
So now all users can learn all about Sam Nasr.
Nice.
It's perfect.
Very nice. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Does
awesome.
that, I know that was a little bit of a lengthy answer, but that's essentially how I would create a fine-tuned model, and then I can deploy it into use for my agents.
Oh, this is great. No, yeah, this was worth the price of admission. Yeah, I really got to get some time on this. This is great.
Bala, did you have a question?
No, I was just commenting on, like, you are a, VIP person, man. Come on, we know about you.
If anything, give me a piece of humble pie, but I appreciate it. All right. Any other questions regarding the playgrounds?
No, this is great. I want to play with this presentation. Like you said, you scratched the surface, but I'm struck by how much we've even talked about. If there's more, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
This is enough to get me. This is enough to get me started.
So one other that I wanted to touch on is, actually, there's many that I want to touch on, but if you recall, with cognitive services that was available a few years ago, you had the ability to look at images, create images, do speech to text, and take a video and transcribe it into get a transcript. There's also the translator playground. So all these names are kind of self-descriptive of all the various things that you could do. Another one that I found very interesting and kind of low-hanging fruit is the content understanding. And let me switch back to another project. So with content understanding, as the name suggests, you're giving it content, and then it will automatically understand what that content is. So for example, I have this document that's uploaded that looks like it's a repair estimate from a collision center. When I click on results, it gives me a JSON breakdown of everything contained within that document. Also, I can try it out where here I have a document that contains some typed text as well as handwritten text, and I can run the analysis on it. And it should produce the result in just a minute. And here it gives me a description of what the content is, and then the actual result in JSON format of what's contained within the document, page numbers, and the location of the fields of everything contained within that document. In addition, I can do data extraction from an invoice or extraction from a contract, and also some additional features that are available here as well. And as you see, it provides some sample documentation. So here's a sample contract. I'll run the analysis on it, and then it'll produce the fields as well as the results over on the right-hand side. Now, while it's doing that, I should point out that in order to do that, I need to have a connected resource out from Azure. So remember when we said that as a prerequisite, you need to have an Azure subscription? So everything that I'm doing in Foundry is essentially a resource that's available over in Azure. The Foundry is like a studio that helps to facilitate and utilize everything that I already set up in Azure, whether it's storage or membership or a resource group. But essentially everything that I'm doing here ties back to Azure. So here's a connected resource, AI Sam Nasr 6120. And if we go over into my Azure portal, there's the resource that I have, and then you'll see that that resource is tied to a resource group for the healthcare project. So everything that I do within the Foundry, even though I created the hub or the project in the Foundry, it essentially ties back over into the Azure portal.
And it creates in all the resources it needs then to do that work.
Right.
Nice.
And so there's a link here, or I can jump to the Foundry portal. And if I go back to home and we just look at resource groups, if I select an individual resource group, you'll see everything that is affiliated with that project. So I have the Foundry resource, I have application insights, I have the healthcare hub, a key vault, machine learning online deployment resource that's available for handling the deployment of the large language model.
Oh, wow.
So everything is tied back into Azure. And just like everything else in Azure, from there I can do cost management and analysis and be able to see which resource group and which specific resource is using up most of my fees.
Because you're paying for that. That's like, okay. Okay, it ties right back to Azure. Awesome.
Look at that, $1.87. Don't mean to brag, but you know, money's no object. All right. Any questions about this?
Oh, that is like, okay. Well, that makes sense. So like you said, the Foundry's free, but of course, all the compute, the storage, network, all the stuff you use, you pay for that like you would traditionally.
Exactly. Right.
You just don't need to configure it. Okay.
Okay.
And I imagine the same rules apply, right? I want to save money. I can turn some of this stuff off, or maybe I can't turn it off because I need the app to run. So, but I can do all the tricks to save money.
Correct. And likewise, you also have to be careful. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but with distillation, I think it is in this document. So distillation is the process where after I fine tune a model, I can then create a smaller model out of it so that it has faster performance, and I'm more concerned with just the stuff that I trained it on. Once I distill that model, now I'm entering into a whole different cost realm where the cost is basically based on 4 different things: the training, the hosting input, as well as output. So even if I'm not using it, hosting is the biggest cost. And I learned this the hard way. Where is that? Right there.
Oh, it's huge. Just for punching that, just for that little bit of fine tuning, $500, $400.
Well, again, there is value behind this cost. I just wasn't utilizing that value. I was doing it as a demo, but in a real world production environment where now I have a very fast, responsive model, now I can use that to my advantage, but it has to obviously outweigh the costs of what's implemented here. Okay?
Right on. Yeah, right on. Good tip. Thanks for that.
All right. Any other questions?
No, that's pretty good, Sam. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I was hoping to do more, but unfortunately, just with time constraints, like I said, it is a very robust product, and there's a lot to be done in the Foundry. If you're interested in this, or interested to have a lunch and learn for your organization, or interested in having it as a class, be more than happy to help. You can check out our website, nistechnologies.com. Also, all my information, socials, is available over on Linktree. But more specifically, if you have any questions, just because the presentation's over doesn't mean the dialogue stops here. Feel free to email me with any questions. Would be happy to help you launch a proof of concept or get things moving. You can reach out to me, snasr@nistechnologies.com. Again, my socials, and then if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I would appreciate it if we would. It's a great way of keeping in touch and sharing articles and information. And then before we adjourn, I also wanted to post 3 links. So there are 3 links in the chat window. One is for the YouTube channel, where this meeting will be edited and uploaded. So if you would please subscribe to that to get the upload notifications. A link to my blog, samnasr.blogspot.com. There I post various technical articles relating to AI and ML, as well as tech events in the region. And then lastly, the feedback eval form. Please take a moment to fill that out. I'm always open to constructive criticism and would love to hear what you thought of tonight's presentation. And with that, if there's no questions or comments, I thank you all for attending. And again, let's keep the dialogue going. Feel free to reach out to me. Good night, everyone.